Hi, I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here again talking about how the laws of nature make free will impossible. And I would encourage you to go back and look at the first video I recorded on this topic because I spent quite a bit of time defining free will and defining what a law of nature is. But here's the important thing to understand: is basically um, there are implications in your worldview, your belief system, when it comes to the laws of nature. Because in the first video, I talked about the laws of nature. Humans can't control them. They can't speed or slow down the earth. They can't change. They can't make gravity stronger or weaker. They can't, make such a thing as hot ice. You know what I mean? It's like there's some things that nature works a certain way. The universe or the world, reality, whatever you call it. You could call it reality. You could call it science. Whatever you call it. I call it the universe or nature, and George calls it God. And this is what's interesting. I think George is going to like this. Okay, and here's why. Because one of the biggest debates that people have in this world has to do with God. Okay, it has to do with the existence of God. And this is where it gets interesting because now, since I said in the first video that humans can't change or alter a law of nature, they cannot, they can't just change the way reality works to be however they want. And just like I said, they can't make the world random if it's completely causal, and they can't make it completely causal or deterministic if there was a causal indeterminism in the world. So that's the important thing to understand is humans can't do that. But then along will come a theist, for example, and they'll say, well, God can control the laws of nature. God can change a law of nature. Well, here's the fun part. It's kind of a funny thing, but here's the important thing to understand. If you believe in God, whatever type of God it is, whether it's the Christian, the Muslim, or one of the Hindu gods, or the pantheist or acutheist God that George proposes, that doesn't give you a free will. And so I'm going to explain how the laws of nature, or God in this case, let's call it the laws of God in this case. If God is nature, synonymous with nature or the universe. Well, here's the interesting part, is that this is tricky because you cannot control or choose what God does. That's the important thing to understand, is that I think most theists would agree, is that you cannot choose, you cannot control God to make God do what you want. Which is a little bit interesting because a lot of religions also include prayer as part of their religion, where it's them begging God to change things that they don't like. Which is interesting because it kind of goes along with the idea that God is all powerful, yet they think that they have power to change God's plan or whatever. But anyway, I don't want to get too off topic. The main point is that humans and other animals, for that matter, this isn't limited to just humans, but it's mostly going to be humans who are listening to this video. So I'm just going to stick with humans for now. Humans don't get control. They don't get such a thing as a free choice or free will because the term is so contradictory. I mean, that's just it. I mean, let's take the fact, like the hedonic imperative, or whatever you call it, where we seek pleasure and avoid pain. Things make us feel good, we keep doing them. And if things make us feel bad, we tend to avoid them. We run away from fire because we know that it will burn and hurt us. All it takes is just getting burnt once in your life, and fire hurts, so you tend to avoid it. So that's just it. So naturally, we want to avoid pain and we want to seek pleasure. And this is an obvious fact. I mean, this is evident. I mean, And if you, it's kind of funny because if someone tries to disagree with me on that and say, well, there are masochists who like feeling pain. I'm like, well, if you like feeling pain, then pain is pleasure for you. It's like you've turned the whole thing around. But it's kind of funny. But yeah, that's the point. Is that there's still some cause or law of nature behind everything we do. And here's the key part. One example that I would like to use for this video is that the laws of nature and the debates about the laws of nature have a lot to do with people's disagreements and their debates over the existence of God. Because, I've listened to debates about the existence of God for some time, and here's what gets interesting about it. Each person, has a different causal history, and so based on what they were taught since they were little children, most of them were taught some form of religion. Most of the time they stick with it. But a lot of the times what we have is people, they are aware of different aspects of the universe, and so they have different opinions about the age of the earth. They've got different opinions. You've got creationists versus people who believe evolution. You've got all these disagreements and debates about reality. But what are they arguing about? They're arguing about reality. They're arguing about what the laws of nature are. But in a sense, to fight with each other about the laws of nature is, okay, it's a little funny because the one thing they're all in agreement on is that there are laws of nature. They're in agreement that there's a way the world works. It's just that you can have two people or more who, from the time they were toddlers, their family and their culture taught them different things. One person says, well, the earth is flat. The other person says the earth is round. One person has a culture that says, oh, God doesn't exist. The other person has a culture that says God does exist and he created the earth 6,000 years ago, So that's the whole point, is that people aren't even choosing their beliefs about nature or the laws of nature. People don't even choose what their religious beliefs or scientific beliefs or whatever you call it. People don't even choose what they believe, which I think is a very important thing to understand, because it helps you not get so angry at people when they believe differently than you. And this is very difficult for people to understand, because on one hand, they think each person is entitled to have different beliefs and that we must respect each other's beliefs about whether God exists or not, or whether evolution is true, or all these different debates that people have. But at the same time, they try to use scientific or logical or religious arguments to force people to believe their way. And this is kind of interesting because, I guess, okay, some of this, and this is just speculation, okay? So don't take this too seriously, what I'm about to say, but this is just the way I see it, okay? My opinion, which I didn't choose. I didn't choose this opinion, okay, people? Okay, so the important thing to understand is that people, okay, they don't choose what they believe because they don't choose their past. They don't choose what their senses observe. But they want to believe that their idea of reality is right. And I think what happens is when somebody else has a different idea about reality, it threatens them. Because then they think, well, I want to be right. I want to have the right idea of reality. And so if somebody else disagrees, I have to prove them wrong. And what I've been realizing the last few years is, no, you don't necessarily have to prove them wrong. You know what I mean? Because it's sort of like, can you live your life and find your happiness even if other people disagree with you? And that's something I've been thinking about recently. But for the most part, when somebody tries to convince somebody that something is true or false, there's a reason behind it. Don't just listen to what the person's saying. Listen to or investigate the reason why they're saying it. For example, there are people who agree with George and I and the other free will skeptics or whatever, and they say, oh yeah, free will doesn't exist. But they will say, but if we tell people they don't have a free will, then they're going to go all kill and rape and steal all the time, which is weird. It's an argument from adverse consequences, but there are people who are fine with keeping an illusion and lying in order to keep people acting the way they want them to. But yeah, I hope I didn't get too off topic there. But the point is, people have emotional biases. They have moral and other reasons why not only do they believe something, but why they have a desire to convert other people to their belief system. And I think this is observable and demonstrable, that you've got people debating these issues. People debate political and religious and scientific viewpoints all the time. And you know what? I think it's good. But one final thing I want to say is that we will not make progress as long as we're believing in free will, because if we do, we're going to blame people for having the wrong opinions. You chose to believe the wrong thing. And so anyway, yeah, I hope I didn't get too off topic. And George and I will be covering more of these topics in future episodes. So I hope that this was educational and you learned something about, why people do what they do. That's what I'm interested in, and that's why I'm part of this no free will movement, if you can call it that. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.